Up next on The Reveal.
You don't belong here. You shouldn't be here.
A Georgia father vows to change laws he says cost him the life of his son.
They didn't render any aid whatsoever after they shot him.
In my head, I was going, we can't take another bill. We're going to lose our house. You know, how am I going to pay for this? And it's a lot.
The emotional and financial toll of surviving COVID-19. And for thousands of Georgians, unemployment leads to even more frustrations.
People are scared. You know, we don't know when the end of this is in sight, and we're worried about having a roof over our heads and being hungry.
From our Midtown studios in Atlanta, The Reveal begins now with our multi-Emmy and National Murrow Award-winning team of investigators. Welcome to The Reveal. I'm Brendan Keefe. 2 Atlanta police officers are charged in the shooting death of Rayshard Brooks. In addition to more serious charges, both officers face trial for taking too long to provide medical aid to Brooks in the minutes after the shooting. But those charges are for violating their oaths of office, because while Atlanta PD has its own policy, there is no law in the state of Georgia requiring officers to render aid.
Shut the vehicle off, put your hands outside the window. I'm not going to ask you again. Hands up!
Less than 1 minute is all it took.
I'm going to put a...
Don't!
Accused of waving a gun at people, seconds later, he fires it.
Open your door.
As the teen runs away,
Let me see your hands!
the officer fires.
When the gunfire stops, some officers go above and beyond the call,
He's dead, dude. Oh, we still gotta try. Hold on him.
pulling medic duty right after pulling the trigger.
The video showing as officers start CPR until medics arrive.
I got one.
Including right here in Atlanta, where officers now carry tourniquets to save each other and the suspects they've just shot.
Hey, stay with me.
He's breathing.
Sometimes it truly is above and beyond the call of duty, a call that some departments don't make and some officers don't answer.
Shots fired.
It is unclear how much, if any, aid is given to Franklin in the minutes following the shooting.
Is he alive?
You don't see any officers even bend in his direction until almost 2 full minutes later.
I haven't touched him yet.
Sometimes it's a life sentence versus a death sentence.
You don't belong here. You shouldn't be here.
Blake Peacock was shot by a sheriff's deputy in Bleckley County, Georgia.
They didn't render any aid whatsoever after they shot him.
Central shots fired. Have EMS rolling.
Sheriff's deputies called for an ambulance within seconds,
Central shots fired. Have EMS rolling.
but then stood over Blake Peacock as he gasped for air, face down.
Like they shot a deer. They don't even turn him over. He fell on his face. They didn't care at that point.
They called EMS right away. They called for an ambulance. What should they have done next that they didn't do?
Now this is an injured human being. I think they should have tried to use any form of life-saving training that they had to save my son.
The second deputy rushed to his patrol car, not to get a trauma kit, but yellow police tape. While Blake was taking his last breaths, police were taping off the rural field without a single bystander in sight.
You knew EMS was on the way. Why didn't you try to save his life?
When the ambulance finally arrived, Blake still had a slight pulse, but it was too late. So Blake's parents sued the deputies for deliberate indifference.
The judge ruled that they have no obligation to render first aid.
Legally, officers fulfill all requirements to help the moment they call for an ambulance.
Central shots fired. Have EMS rolling.
We need to remember there's a heart on the other side of the badge that's having to use force, and it changes their lives forever.
Attorney and author Lance LaRusso represents police officers involved in shootings.
It's the good people behind the badges that are trying to give aid when they can.
I got one.
But if you make that a law that they are required to, then we're going to get into these second guessing situations where the officer tactically wasn't able to, and they could be facing criminal liability. That's not appropriate.
Edwin Peacock.
Ed Peacock is now on a mission, starting with his hometown and the city council in Cochran, Georgia.
That there is currently no federal law or peace officer policy that requires any U.S. lawman to render any physical life-saving aid to an American citizen they shoot using deadly force.
Did you have any luck with the city council?
And right before Christmas, I think Blake and our family got a Christmas present. They actually changed their policies and procedures. Officers should immediately provide any necessary medical assistance to the subject to the degree to which they are trained. And I'm hoping that'll be the ripple in the pond. It'll go across the whole country. Y'all rest in peace.
Since we first brought you this investigation last February, Ed Peacock has embarked on a campaign to pass Blake's Law in Georgia and across the nation. In the meantime, he's encouraging police departments to make Stop the Bleed kits standard equipment in all patrol cars to save both wounded police officers and wounded suspects.
I'm Reveal investigator Faith Abube. Voters in one Georgia county will soon decide whether to get rid of their police department altogether. It's the same police department that responded to the Ahmaud Arbery case but made no arrest. And now, thanks to state lawmakers, the community will get to decide whether the police department stays or goes in light of its troubled past. The first time Ahmaud Arbery's mother learned someone had killed her son, it was the Glynn County police officer on the other end of her cell phone.
He went on to say that Ahmaud had been involved in a burglary, and in the midst of the burglary, Ahmaud was confronted by the homeowner. And during that confrontation, there was a tussle over the handgun, and Ahmaud was shot and killed.
Wanda Cooper says she knew her son's character, but she also did not question what the investigator was telling her.
Because the way that I lived is, if authority and they came and told you anything, you didn't question that.
But months later, that version of the story doesn't match an official police report and the multiple videos surrounding the deadly shooting.
That the video directly contradicted every statement made to the staff.
The case has put the troubled police department in the spotlight. The Reveal has uncovered an internal investigation report, grand jury findings, and lawsuits against the department alleging corruption, a culture of cover-up, and abuse of power. The documents also allege false statements, tampering with evidence, influencing or intimidating witnesses, hindering arrest of one of their own, and destroying or not properly maintaining public records.
This is a department that is not necessarily following the rules and is kind of made up of a lot of rogue actors.
Darren Penn is an Atlanta attorney representing a woman suing the Glynn County Police Department for allegedly mishandling her daughter's domestic violence case. That daughter was married to a police officer in the same department.
They're going through a divorce.
He is not allowed in my house. This is not his house.
Mr. Corey Sasser, an incredibly violent and out of control police officer for the Glynn County Police Department.
The former Glynn County police officer killed his estranged wife and another man before turning the gun on himself in 2018. Penn says the officer's wife complained to the department repeatedly, but they failed to arrest the officer when it mattered, and he thinks that parallels what's happened in the Arbery case.
Just the overall hesitancy to do anything about it, to investigate them, to make any kind of arrests, to actually, at the end of the day, protect the public.
In February, 5 days after the Ahmaud Arbery shooting, the Glynn County police chief and 3 high-ranking police officers were all indicted on multiple criminal charges. They include having sex with confidential informants, violation of oath of office, influencing a witness, and a criminal attempt to commit a felony. Their case is related to a disbanded drug task force. A grand jury report also concluded, quote, there is an ongoing culture of cover-up, failure to supervise, abuse of power, and lack of accountability within the administration of the Glynn County Police Department. And that voters should decide in 2020 whether the department should be merged with the sheriff's office instead.
It paints a very troubling picture of a police department that is not following procedures.
The department now has a new interim chief, And its former officer and DA investigator Gregory McMichael is now facing murder charges with his son, Travis McMichael.
On the passage of Senate Bill 509.
But for lawmakers at the state capitol, that's not enough.
Ayes are 159. The nays are 3.
State lawmakers looking to abolish the Glynn County Police Department passed a series of bills in the last week, all in attempts to dissolve the police department. The bills clear the way for voters to make the final decision in November.
It allows the voters of Glynn County to vote to transfer the police power from the Glynn County Police Department to the office of the Sheriff of Glynn County.
If approved by voters in November, the Glynn County Police Department will be no more on May 2nd, 2021.
This is not in accordance with any effort to defund police. The people of Glynn County want law enforcement. I want good law enforcement. We just want to bring order and peace and to settle some of the issues that have plagued our community throughout the years.
And at least one Glynn County commissioner did ask the House Black Caucus to vote against the bills, but those bills now head to the governor's desk for his signature. Coming up.
It was 199,000 and change. And, that was surprising because I've never seen that big a bill in my life.
The financial toll of COVID-19.
This week, our state hit a new milestone in our battle with COVID-19. The number of people so ill they needed care at the hospital has now surpassed 10,000. Doctors say they have learned a lot about treating this virus, and some patients, once near death, are now back at home. Still, they say it could take months, even years, to heal from the financial toll of beating this virus.
They are the moments that keep hope alive, the cheers and reunions with loved ones.
Those doctors and nurses, they deserve every penny they get.
Not only did Bridget Cook survive COVID-19, but so did her father and daughter, who spent 11 days on a ventilator. But Cook herself almost didn't go to the hospital.
In my head, I was going, we can't take another bill. We're going to lose our house. How am I going to pay for this? And it's a lot.
So far, the bill for Cook's care is $18,000. She's waiting to see what her insurance will pay, but she fears it won't be much.
I read the other day, it pays like $300 a day for a hospital stay. And I'm like, holy cow.
She has no idea what her daughter's care will cost.
Hi, Daddy.
Richard Pellegrino, a man in Cobb County, was on a ventilator for about a week. His bill?
It was 199,000 and change. And, that it was surprising because I've never seen that big a bill in my life for anything.
18,000 of that, costs associated with 2 visits to the emergency room where he was turned away without receiving the COVID test. Pellegrino also received an experimental treatment.
Yeah, I was offered and accepted the anti-malarial drugs,
which not all health insurance companies have agreed to cover.
You literally just described the typical surprise medical bills in the area.
Bernetta Hayes with consumer advocacy nonprofit Georgia Watch has a guide to help families navigate the patchwork of promises from insurance providers and the government. While most say they'll cover testing,
the treatment aspect of COVID-19 healthcare is where the confusion and some of the surprises will come into play.
The federal government has said it will foot the bill for the uninsured and Medicare, which Pellegrino has. Still, his last statement has him on the hook for $38,000.
We're living day to day.
Just search GoFundMe COVID medical bills, and you will find an almost endless list of families asking for help. Families like Cook, who made the tough decision not to get the inhaler prescribed as part of her COVID recovery.
Was like $360. That's a car payment. That's part of our house payment.
But Cook says she doesn't regret the decision to go to the hospital. Her husband put it simply,
I'd rather pay a hospital bill than a funeral bill for you. And that kind of resonated in my head.
Richard Pellegrino has been able to negotiate his bills down to about $6,000, while insurance companies have seemed willing to cover a large share of those treatment costs. Pellegrino's remaining balance stems mostly from those trips to the ER before he was properly diagnosed with COVID-19.
Up next.
It definitely is frustrating and scary. And, I don't come from a lot of money.
Why are thousands of Georgians still waiting for unemployment benefits?
Welcome back to The Reveal. The coronavirus has cost millions of Americans their jobs, a painful reality made worse for some who have had to wait months to get their unemployment benefits. How could this happen? The Reveal went searching for answers.
It's been tough. It's been a lot of calling the Department of Labor.
Ryan Steinbach estimates he spent more than 100 hours on the phone trying to reach someone at the Georgia Department of Labor to get his unemployment benefits.
I try early morning. I try lunch, pre-lunch time, post-lunch time.
The 27-year-old Decatur sound technician filed for unemployment in early April after the movie and TV industry stopped production due to the pandemic.
It definitely is frustrating and scary. And, I don't come from a lot of money, so I'm used to, money being tight, but now it just feels like the hole's just getting deeper.
Steinbach is one of 2.4 million Georgians who have filed for unemployment since March. While the state has paid $6.1 billion in benefits so far, 11 Alive has learned many are still waiting to receive money or even a callback from the state. Alan Sherman is one of them.
Every time I called, I kept getting kind of sort of attitude with people.
He and 8 others waiting for benefits recently joined me on a Zoom call. All are part of a Facebook group called Georgia Unemployment Issues COVID-19, which has nearly 10,000 members.
And financially, how are you doing right now?
Holding on by a thread.
From Stacy, a single parent in Lithonia.
We're asking for some type of help.
To Leslie in Savannah.
For us, it's really been nothing more than a real frustration.
We sent a recording of the meeting to Kersha Cartwright, a spokesperson for Georgia DOL.
Those individuals that were on your Zoom call were very frustrated, and I certainly understand that.
Cartwright says the cause of most delays involve verifying identities.
Can we see the Social Security card? Can we see the driver's license? Can we make sure that those numbers align? And that's what has caused a lot of the delay.
The morning we spoke with the Department of Labor, Steinbach received his unemployment benefits nearly 3 months after he first filed.
People are scared. We don't know when the end of this is in sight, and we were worried about having a roof over our heads and being hungry.
The state admits it wished it would have created more online tutorials early on to help people resolve issues on their own, but it did not anticipate the wave of unemployment filing so quickly. The state also says that it is important to spend the time to verify identities to prevent fraud. It is currently investigating about $1.5 million in potential fraud charges. The state's biggest piece of advice: keep calling.